The laughter echoes through the emergency room as the medical director points at the 52-year-old night shift nurse and calls her a dinosaur who cannot keep up with modern medicine. "You're done, Evelyn. Security will escort you out after this shift ends at 6 a.m. Dr. Harrison Webb stands in the center of the trauma bay, his white coat pristine despite the chaos of the emergency department around them. 23 staff members watch as he delivers his verdict to Evelyn Reeves, who stands quietly near the supply cart, her scrubs bearing the stains of a 12-hour shift that started at 6 p.m. the previous evening. While they laugh, Evelyn's fingers maintain their position on the neck of the patient she just lost, exactly on the carotid artery point that only combat medics memorize for battlefield trauma. The young resident beside her notices nothing unusual about the 4-count breathing pattern Evelyn maintains, even as she receives her termination notice. Behind them on the monitor, small text flashes briefly. Toxicology pending, nerve agent suspected, classified substance detected. But Webb has already cleared the alert before anyone else can read it. Evelyn nods once, folds her scrubs in the precise military manner that takes exactly 6 seconds, and walks toward the exit. The emergency room staff returns to their tasks, believing this is simply another night shift, ending with a simple outcome: an old nurse being replaced by someone younger and supposedly better. None of the 23 people in that room realize they have just witnessed the beginning of 6 hours that will change everything, including the 2 rescue helicopters already receiving emergency launch orders from the airbase 15 miles away. The emergency department at Desert Springs Medical Center sits 4 miles from the main gate of Nellis Air Force Base, close enough that the sound of jets taking off rattles the windows during day shifts. But at 3:47 a.m. on this particular March morning, the only sounds are the steady beeping of monitors and the whispered conversations of staff trying to process what just happened. Evelyn walks to the break room to collect her belongings. Her movements are deliberate, measured. Each step covers exactly 30 inches, the same stride length drilled into her during a very different kind of training decades ago. The younger nurses step aside as she passes, some with sympathy in their eyes, others with the relief of those who believe they have witnessed natural selection in the workplace. "About time," Diane Morrison, the night shift nurse manager, says to her group near the medication station. "I've been documenting her inability to follow protocols for months. Did you see how she handled that patient? Didn't even wait for Dr. Webb to assess before starting interventions." The patient Diane refers to lies still in Trauma Room 3, covered by a white sheet. Jane Doe, approximately 35 years old, brought in 90 minutes ago with severe convulsions and respiratory distress. No identification, no medical history, no explanation for her symptoms. Just a woman dying faster than anyone could understand why. Evelyn had recognized something in those symptoms. The particular pattern of pupil dilation, the specific type of muscle rigidity, the distinctive respiratory rhythm that preceded complete system failure. She had seen it exactly once before, 10 years ago, in a classified medical file that technically did not exist. Chief Warrant Officer Hayes, a 60-year-old veteran working hospital security after retirement, watches Evelyn pack her things. Something about her posture triggers a memory he cannot quite place. The way she squares her shoulders while maintaining a relaxed appearance. The way her eyes scan every corner of the room in a pattern. High left, high right, low corners, center mass, exits. He has seen that pattern before, in places where such habits mean the difference between living and dying. "Rough way to end a career," Hayes says quietly, stepping into the break room. Evelyn continues packing without looking up. "Every career ends, Chief. Some just end more quietly than others." The title catches her attention for half a second before she continues. She had not told him she recognized his rank from his stance alone, the particular way retired military police hold themselves even years after their last salute. Just as he has not mentioned that he notices she folds her spare scrubs using the exact technique taught in basic training, corners aligned to a precision that civilian nursing schools never require. "The patient in room 3, Hayes ventures carefully. "You seem to recognize something. Standard convulsion pattern. Unfortunately, we couldn't stabilize her in time." But Hayes caught the micro-expression that flashed across her face when she first saw the woman's symptoms. Not confusion or medical curiosity, but recognition followed immediately by careful concealment. Whatever killed Jane Doe, Evelyn Reeves had seen it before. At 4:05 a.m., security arrives to escort Evelyn from the building. 2 guards, both young enough to be her sons, stand awkwardly at the break room door. They have been briefed by Dr. Webb, escort the terminated employee from the premises, ensure she returns her access badge, verify she takes only personal belongings. "Ma'am," the taller guard says, clearly uncomfortable with the assignment, "we need to walk you out now." Evelyn nods, picks up her bag, and follows them through the emergency department. The overnight trauma team barely glances up from their work. To them, she is already history, a footnote in the hospital's modernization efforts. The older nurse who could not adapt to new electronic systems, who insisted on using outdated techniques, who challenged Dr. Webb one too many times. If watching someone get fired for doing the right thing makes your blood boil, hit that like button and subscribe, because what happens in the next 6 hours will show you why the quiet ones are often the most dangerous. They pass Trauma Room 3, where a hazmat team has arrived to handle the body. Evelyn notices the team leader scanning a detection device over Jane Doe's remains. The device emits a specific pattern of beeps, 3 short, 3 long, 3 short, a distress signal that most would interpret as equipment malfunction, but Evelyn knows that pattern. It is the same alert pattern used by military chemical detection units when they encounter certain classified substances. Lab technician Bradley Chen intercepts them near the exit, pretending to need a signature on paperwork. As Evelyn signs, he whispers quickly, "The toxicology system flagged something. Classified level. It got scrubbed from the records 30 seconds after it appeared." The guards do not hear the exchange. They are focused on their phones, probably texting their relief that this boring assignment is almost complete. They do not notice Evelyn's hand pause for exactly 1.5 seconds before completing her signature. They do not see her eyes flick to the emergency exit locations, calculating distances and obstacles. They definitely do not recognize that she has just shifted her weight to the balls of her feet, a subtle preparation for rapid movement. Diane Morrison appears one last time, unable to resist a final confrontation. "You know, Evelyn, if you had just embraced the new systems instead of clinging to your outdated methods, none of this would have happened, but you always thought you knew better than everyone else." "Sometimes knowing better means knowing when to stay quiet," Evelyn replies, her voice steady and emotionless. "What's that supposed to mean?" "Nothing that matters now." But it does matter, because in 43 minutes, a helicopter will land carrying a dying man whose life depends on knowledge that exists in exactly 7 mines in the entire world. 6 of those mines are already dead, victims of accidents, suicides, and medical emergencies that were anything but accidental. Evelyn Reeves is the 7th, though she has spent 10 years pretending to be no one special. The parking lot of Desert Springs Medical Center stretches across 4 acres of Nevada desert, illuminated by sodium lights that turn everything a sickly orange color. At 4:15 a.m., it contains maybe 60 vehicles, the cars of night shift workers, a few family members maintaining bedside vigils, and 3 black SUVs parked in perfect tactical formation near the ambulance bay. Evelyn spots the vehicles immediately. Their positioning is too precise for coincidence. One blocking the main exit, one covering the secondary route, one positioned for rapid pursuit. The engines are running despite the cool desert night, exhaust visible in the 40-degree air. These are not family members waiting for news. These are professionals positioned for an interception. The guards beside her remain oblivious, discussing their plans for after their shift ends. The younger one mentions a gaming session. The older talks about breakfast at a diner near the base. Neither notices Evelyn's breathing shift to a controlled pattern. 4 counts in, hold for 4, 4 counts out, hold for 4. The same breathing technique taught in survival schools to maintain calm under extreme stress. "Thank you for the escort," Evelyn says, as they reach her 10-year-old Honda Civic parked in the employees section. "I can manage from here. We need to wait until you leave the property," the older guard says apologetically. "Protocol. Protocol. Everything in Evelyn's life has been about protocol, following it, breaking it, creating it, surviving it. 10 years ago, she followed protocol when she signed papers she knew were false. She broke protocol when she saved a man who was supposed to die. She created protocol that could save lives in situations where standard medicine failed, and now she must survive the protocols of others who want her silenced." The black SUVs begin moving as she starts her car. They maintain their tactical spacing, creeping forward at exactly the speed needed to intercept her at the parking lot exit. The precision speaks of training, coordination, and purpose. These are not random criminals or opportunistic threats. These are hunters who have been waiting for her. Hayes appears in her rearview mirror, having followed them outside under the pretense of a smoke break. He stands near the emergency entrance, his phone in hand, watching the SUVs with the alertness of someone who recognizes a threat pattern. Their eyes meet in the mirror for 1 second. He mouths a single word, "Run." But Evelyn does not run, not yet. She drives at exactly 15 miles per hour toward the exit, maintaining the speed limit posted for the parking lot. Her hands rest at 10 and 2 on the steering wheel. To any observer, she appears to be a fired nurse leaving work, defeated and compliant. The lead SUV accelerates to cut her off. The driver's window rolls down, revealing a man in a black suit with an earpiece. Federal agent, her training tells her. But something is wrong with the picture. His weapon sits too high on his hip for standard FBI carry. His earpiece is a commercial model, not government issue. His suit is expensive, but not the specific cut required by federal dress code. "Evelyn Reeves," the man calls out as her car approaches. She stops 15 feet away, engine still running. Through her peripheral vision, she tracks the other 2 vehicles closing in from the sides. Standard 3-point containment, except they have made a crucial error. They assumed she would be alone, frightened, and compliant. They did not account for 10 years of muscle memory, waiting beneath the surface of a middle-aged nurse's exterior. "Agent Torres, FBI," the man says, stepping out and displaying a badge. "We need you to come with us. There are questions about the patient who died during your shift." The badge gleams gold in the sodium lights, held at exactly the angle taught at federal training centers to maximize authority and minimize detailed observation. But Evelyn's eyes process information at a different speed than most. In the 0.3 seconds the badge remains visible, she catalogs 17 details that confirm her suspicion. This man is not FBI. "May I see your credentials again?" she asks, her voice carrying the uncertain tone of a civilian trying to cooperate. "Ma'am, we don't have time for this. National security is involved." National security, the phrase that opens doors, silences questions, and justifies anything. Evelyn has heard it before, spoken by men who used it to cover crimes that would horrify the public if exposed. Men like Colonel Lionel Sparks, who 10 years ago stood in a burning helicopter and made a decision that should have killed everyone involved. "I'll need to call my lawyer first," Evelyn says, pulling out her phone. "No calls. Get out of the vehicle now." The other SUVs have completed their containment. 6 more suits emerge, all wearing the same commercial earpieces, all carrying weapons in the same non-regulation position. Whatever agency these men represent, it is not the Federal Bureau of Investigation. Hayes steps forward from the hospital entrance, his own phone raised. "Hey, everything okay out here? Evelyn, is there a problem?" "Security, return to your post," Torres commands without looking at him. "Actually, I'm off duty in 5 minutes," Hayes replies, continuing to approach. "And I'm pretty sure FBI agents are required to allow citizens to verify credentials, especially when conducting operations on private property without local law enforcement coordination." The observation hangs in the air. Every real federal agent knows the protocols for civilian interaction. These men have just failed a basic test that any first-year agent would pass. The tension shifts, becoming something sharper and more dangerous. Torres reaches for his weapon. Not the smooth, practiced motion of a trained agent, but the aggressive grab of someone used to intimidation, working immediately. Evelyn's hands tighten on the steering wheel, her body coiled to throw the car into reverse and execute a J-turn that would give her seconds to escape. Then she hears them. The sound starts as a distant thrum, barely audible over the idling engines. But Evelyn knows that particular acoustic signature, the deep rhythmic beat of twin turboshaft engines pushing military helicopters through thin desert air. She counts the seconds, calculating distance and approach speed. 2 aircraft, possibly UH-60 variants, closing at approximately 120 knots from the northwest. From Nellis. Torres hears them too. His hand freezes on his weapon as he looks skyward, confusion replacing authority on his face. Real FBI agents would know about any military air operations in their vicinity. They would have been notified, coordinated with, included in the loop. But Torres and his team look genuinely surprised as the sound grows louder. "What is that?" one of his men asks nervously. The answer comes in the form of 2 HH-60G Pave Hawks breaking over the hospital at 200 feet, their searchlights blazing to life and focusing on the parking lot. The rotor wash hits like a physical force, sending loose papers flying and forcing everyone to shield their faces from the stinging sand and debris. The lead helicopter banks hard, descending toward the parking lot with the controlled aggression of a combat landing. The second maintains overwatch, circling at 300 feet with door gunners visible in the open sides. These are not medical evacuation birds. These are Air Force Special Operations aircraft, configured for personnel recovery in hostile environments. Torres stumbles backward as the lead helicopter touches down 50 feet away, its rotors still at flight speed, ready for immediate departure. The side door slides open, and three figures in operational camouflage emerge, moving with the fluid precision of Special Operations personnel. The lead figure, a major according to his rank insignia, approaches the contained vehicles with his hand on his sidearm. His voice carries over the rotor noise with practiced authority. "Evelyn Reeves, do not get in those vehicles. They are not FBI." Torres attempts to assert control. "This is a federal operation. Stand down immediately." The major laughs, a harsh sound that cuts through the chaos. "Federal operation? Show me your authorization to operate on this installation's support facility. Show me your coordination documents with Nellis security forces. Show me anything that proves you're not the mercenary trash we've been tracking for the last 6 hours." The word mercenary changes everything. Hayes draws his own weapon, 20-year-old training kicking in as he reassesses the threat. The hospital security guards who followed him outside scramble for cover. Someone inside has called 911, and the distant wail of sirens adds to the chaos. "Evelyn," the major calls out, his voice urgent but controlled. "We need you to come with us, now. He's dying, and you're the only one left who can save him." "Who's dying?" Evelyn asks, though part of her already knows. There is only one person whose life would warrant this level of military intervention. Mark Danner. 43 minutes ago, he was exposed to the same nerve agent that killed your patient tonight. You have less than 30 minutes before his organs begin shutting down. Mark Danner, a name she has not spoken aloud in 10 years. The pilot she pulled from a burning helicopter in Syria, whose survival she ensured at the cost of her military career. The man she was told died 24 hours after she saved him, making her sacrifice meaningless. But now they are telling her he is alive and dying again. Torres makes his move while everyone processes this information. Not for his weapon, but for a phone, speed dialing a number that connects in one ring. Packages blown, military intervention, extract immediately. The three SUVs accelerate simultaneously, engines roaring as they attempt to scatter in different directions. But the Overwatch helicopter was prepared for this. It drops to 100 feet, using its rotor wash to blind the drivers and its searchlight to destroy their night vision. Two vehicles collide trying to avoid the aerial harassment, while the third manages to escape toward the highway. "Let them go," the major commands his team. "We have what we came for." He turns to Evelyn, and for the first time, she sees past his military bearing to the desperation underneath. "Ma'am, I know this is sudden. I know you have no reason to trust us. But if we don't leave right now, a good man dies. The last man from Operation Seraphim besides yourself." Operation Seraphim, the name she has not heard spoken since the day she signed papers swearing it never existed. The medical program so classified that even mentioning its existence carried a 20-year federal sentence. The techniques that could save lives when conventional medicine failed, developed in combat zones where failure meant death. "You're telling me 6 of them are dead?" Evelyn asks, already knowing the answer. "Confirmed over the last 18 months. Accidents, suicides, sudden medical emergencies, all investigated, all ruled natural or self-inflicted. All wrong. Someone has been hunting Seraphim participants, and tonight they tried to add Mark to the list." The parking lot has become a crime scene. Local police arrive, followed by more security from the base. The fake FBI vehicles are gone, leaving only skid marks and the lingering smell of burned rubber. Hayes stands protectively near Evelyn's car, his old instincts fully awakened. Dr. Webb emerges from the hospital, his face purple with rage. "What is the meaning of this? This woman was terminated. She has no authority here." The major turns to face him with the cold disdain military officers reserve for civilians who interfere in operations. "Dr. Webb, this woman has a security clearance so far above yours that you're not even cleared to know it exists. The patient who died in your ER tonight was killed by a weapon you're not cleared to know about. and the man dying right now can only be saved by procedures you're not cleared to learn. So, I suggest you return to your hospital and forget this ever happened. You can't just... Actually, we can. The Major produces a phone, showing Webb something on the screen that drains all color from his face. That's a direct order from the Secretary of Defense. Would you like to explain to him why you're interfering with a critical operation? Webb retreats, but Diane Morrison steps forward, her self-importance overcoming her common sense. Evelyn is a liability. She doesn't follow protocols. She invented the protocols that have saved more lives than you'll ever know, the Major interrupts. Now, clear the area before you're arrested for obstruction. Evelyn has already made her decision. She was making it from the moment she heard Mark's name. 10 years of hiding, of pretending to be nobody special, of accepting humiliation and dismissal, all of it falls away like a coat she no longer needs to wear. How was he exposed? She asks, moving toward the helicopter. Contaminated flight suit. Someone knew exactly which compounds would trigger the reaction. This wasn't random. It was an assassination attempt using knowledge only Seraphim personnel would have. Sparks, Evelyn says quietly. The Major stops mid-stride. Colonel Sparks died 3 years ago. Car accident in Virginia. No, Evelyn says with absolute certainty. He didn't. Did you catch what she did with that IV line? Drop your theory about who Evelyn really is in the comments below. They board the helicopter as the first rays of dawn break over the Nevada desert. The crew chief hands Evelyn a headset, and suddenly she is connected to a network of voices coordinating the most complex medical evacuation she has ever witnessed. Trauma 7, this is Rescue 6. We have the package. ETA to Field Surgical Unit is 12 minutes. Copy Rescue 6. Patient status critical but stable. Vitals are dropping but within acceptable parameters. We need her here 5 minutes ago. Her. They all know who Evelyn is, or at least what she represents. The last keeper of knowledge that should never have existed but cannot be allowed to die. As the helicopter lifts off, she sees the hospital receding below, the parking lot already filling with official vehicles that will sanitize the scene and ensure no records remain of what transpired. Hayes waves from beside her car, a gesture of respect from one warrior to another. He recognized what others missed, that beneath the facade of a middle-aged nurse lived someone trained for moments exactly like this. The flight to the forward surgical unit takes them over restricted airspace that civilian aircraft never see. Below, the Nevada test and training range stretches for thousands of square miles, its secrets buried beneath desert sand and official denial. Somewhere down there, in bunkers that do not exist on any map, the original Seraphim files sit in servers that require presidential authority to access. Tell me exactly what happened, Evelyn says through the headset, her voice steady despite the adrenaline flooding her system. 0200 hours, Mark returned from a classified flight test. Everything normal until he removed his gear. Within minutes, acute respiratory distress, followed by neurological symptoms identical to the ones you've seen before. Who had access to his equipment? That's the problem. Only cleared personnel with Tier 1 authorization. We're looking at an inside threat. An inside threat. Someone with clearance, knowledge, and motive. Someone who knew that Mark Danner was not just another test pilot, but one of 7 people who survived the original Seraphim trials in Syria. Someone who has been systematically eliminating witnesses to something that happened a decade ago. The patient from the hospital, Evelyn says, pieces clicking together. Jane Doe. She wasn't random, was she? The Major's silence confirms her suspicion. Then, we think she was a test run. Someone wanted to see if the compound still worked, if it would trigger the same response. When she died at your hospital, they knew the formula was correct. And they knew I would be there to see it. Ma'am? Think about it. An unidentified woman shows up at the exact hospital where I work, on my shift, with symptoms only I would recognize. Either it's the world's biggest coincidence or someone wanted to see if I still remembered the protocols. The implications settle over them like a shroud. This is not just about eliminating witnesses. Someone is testing, probing, verifying that the knowledge they are trying to destroy still exists in the minds they are hunting, which means they need that knowledge for something. The field surgical unit appears ahead, a cluster of military tents and vehicles arranged in a defensive perimeter on a flat section of desert. As they descend, Evelyn sees medical personnel running between structures, the controlled chaos of a trauma center preparing for a patient they do not know how to save. "Major," she says as they touch down, "there's something you need to know. The antidote for this nerve agent isn't just medical. It requires a specific sequence of interventions that interact with the victim's individual biochemistry. That's why Protocol 17 Romeo was classified beyond top secret. It's not just knowing what to do, it's knowing how to read the patient's response and adjust in real time. We have the best military doctors who won't recognize the subtle indicators that determine success or failure. I need complete autonomy in there. No interference, no questions, no recording devices. Can you guarantee that?" The major hesitates. In the military, everything is documented, reviewed, analyzed. But he looks at his watch, 22 minutes remaining, and nods. "You'll have whatever you need." They run from the helicopter to the surgical tent, medical staff parting before them like water. Inside, the temperature is controlled to exactly 68 degrees, optimal for the procedures Evelyn must perform. On the table in the center lies Mark Danner, and for a moment, her professional composure cracks. He looks almost exactly as he did 10 years ago, lying on a makeshift surgical table in a Syrian forward operating base. The same sharp features, now lined with a decade of secrets. The same powerful frame, now trembling with neurological distress. The same hands that once flew experimental aircraft through impossible conditions, now clenched in involuntary spasms. But there are differences. Scars she does not recognize cross his chest. Evidence of the years she thought he was dead. A tattoo on his shoulder showing coordinates she memorizes instantly. 36.2369 degree N, 115.228 degree. The location of something important enough to mark on his body. And around his neck, on a chain she remembers, a small metal vial that should not exist. "Everyone out," Evelyn commands, her voice carrying an authority that surprises even her. "Except you," she points to a young Air Force pararescue jumper. "You've had combat medical training?" "Yes, ma'am. 3 tours in Afghanistan." "Good, you're going to assist. Everyone else leaves now." The medical staff protests, but the major enforces her demand. Within 30 seconds, the tent contains only Evelyn, the PJ, and the dying man who holds secrets worth killing for. She begins with observation, not touching him yet, reading the signs his body displays. The pattern of perspiration tells her which nerve clusters are most affected. The rhythm of his tremors indicates the progression rate of the toxin. The dilation of his pupils reveals how close he is to the point of no return. "Hand me the vial around his neck," she tells the PJ. "Ma'am, I don't think—" That vial contains a sample of his blood from before the first exposure 10 years ago. It's the baseline I need to calibrate the intervention. He's been carrying it ever since, knowing this day might come. The young man carefully removes the vial, his hands steady, despite the strangeness of the situation. Evelyn takes it, holds it to the light, and sees what she expected. The dark red of preserved blood, kept viable through methods most scientists would claim impossible. "Now," she says, rolling up her sleeves to reveal her own scars from a decade of hiding her true nature, "let me tell you what we're really dealing with. This isn't just a nerve agent. It's a synthetic compound designed to mimic natural neurotoxins while evading every known treatment. The only way to stop it is to trigger the body's own defense mechanisms in a specific sequence that has to be adjusted based on real-time biological feedback." She moves to the equipment table, selecting instruments with the precision of someone who has done this before, not in the sterile environment of a modern hospital, but in the chaos of combat, where seconds meant the difference between success and failure. "The protocol has 17 steps," she continues, establishing an IV line in a location most medical professionals would never consider, the subclavian space normally reserved for central lines, but accessed at an angle that allows for rapid diffusion of treatment compounds. Each step depends on the patient's response to the previous one. One mistake, one mistimed intervention, and the cascade failure becomes irreversible. The PJ watches with professional interest as she works, recognizing techniques that exist in no manual, procedures that belong to no official medical doctrine. This is battlefield medicine evolved beyond anything taught in military schools, refined through trial and error in situations where conventional treatment meant certain death. "Step 1, Evelyn announces, injecting a clear solution that causes Mark's tremors to intensify momentarily before subsiding. Disruption of the toxin's binding sites. The tremors indicate success. If they had stopped immediately, it would mean his neurons were already too damaged. She counts heartbeats, watching his vital signs on monitors while also reading the subtle cues that machines cannot detect. The slight change in skin tone that indicates improved oxygenation, the microscopic shift in pupil response that suggests neural pathway recovery, the almost imperceptible relaxation of specific muscle groups that tells her the treatment is working. Step 2. Another injection, this one causing his breathing to slow dramatically. The PJ reaches for the ventilator controls, but Evelyn stops him. No, his body needs to find its own rhythm. The toxin disrupts autonomous functions. We have to let his nervous system recalibrate. For 15 seconds that feel like hours, Mark barely breathes. Then, like an engine catching after multiple attempts, his respiratory pattern stabilizes at a rate that would concern most doctors, but tells Evelyn exactly what she needs to know. She continues through the steps, each one building on the last, creating a cascade of biological responses that gradually neutralize the synthetic toxin. Some interventions are pharmaceutical, using drugs in combinations that would be considered dangerous under normal circumstances. Others are physical, pressure applied to specific nerve clusters, manipulation of joints to trigger reflexes that help clear the toxin from neural pathways. At step 11, Mark's eyes open. Not the confused, unfocused gaze of someone emerging from unconsciousness, but the sharp, alert awareness of someone who has been conscious but paralyzed. He looks directly at Evelyn, and she sees recognition, gratitude, and warning, all conveyed in a single glance. "Don't try to speak yet," she tells him, continuing with step 12. "The vocal cords will be the last to recover, but I see you in there." He blinks twice, the old signal they used in Syria for "understood." "Ma'am," the PJ says urgently, "someone's trying to enter the tent." Through the fabric walls, Evelyn hears raised voices. The major arguing with someone who insists on immediate access. A voice she recognizes but hoped never to hear again. Colonel Lionel Sparks, very much alive despite reports of his death. "Stall them," she orders, moving faster now, but not rushing. Rushing leads to mistakes, and mistakes in Protocol 17, Romeo, are fatal. Tell them the patient is at a critical intervention point. Any disruption could cause complete system failure. The PJ exits to relay the message, leaving Evelyn alone with Mark for the first time in a decade. She continues working, but speaks quietly, knowing he can hear her. "They told me you died. 24 hours after I saved you in Syria, they said complications from the exposure killed you. I signed the papers, accepted the discharge, disappeared like they wanted. All because I thought my sacrifice meant you survived." Mark's hand moves slightly, his fingers brushing hers. A gesture that would appear involuntary to observers, but carries a decade of unspoken communication. "Sparks is here," she continues, administering step 15, "which means this was all orchestrated. Jane Doe, your exposure, bringing me here, it's all part of something larger." She sees the truth in his eyes. He knows. Whatever conspiracy has been hunting Seraphim survivors, whatever secret is worth killing 7 people to protect, Mark has been investigating it. And now, they are both trapped in the center of a web that has been spinning for 10 years. Step 16 requires something that exists in no medical textbook: the use of the patient's own preserved blood as a calibration tool. She draws a sample of Mark's current blood, mixes it with the preserved sample in specific proportions, and observes the reaction under a field microscope. The cells interact in ways that would fascinate researchers if they were allowed to know such techniques existed. "The binding is reversing," she announces, loud enough for any listening devices to hear. One more step. But step 17 is not what observers expect. Instead of another injection or intervention, Evelyn leans close to Mark's ear and whispers coordinates. 36.2369 north, 115.2888 west. I know what's there. When you can speak, tell me if I'm right. His eyes widen in shock, then narrow with determination. He knows she has recognized the tattoo, decoded its meaning, and understood why he marked his body with that specific location. Whatever is hidden at those coordinates, it is important enough to risk everything to protect or expose. The final step of Protocol 17, Romeo Rio, is the simplest and most dangerous, allowing the patient's system to restart naturally without medical support. Evelyn removes the IV lines, steps back, and watches as Mark's body completes the recovery process she has initiated. For 30 seconds, nothing happens. Then, like a computer rebooting after a critical error, his systems come back online in sequence. Breathing normalizes, heart rate stabilizes. Neurological function returns in a cascade of movement as he tests each limb, each digit, each response. "Evelyn," he says, his voice rough but clear, "you saved me. Again." "That's what I do," she replies, but her attention is already shifting to the tent entrance where shadows indicate multiple people preparing to enter. Colonel Lionel Sparks steps through the entrance, and Evelyn's first thought is that death has been kind to him. 3 years of being officially deceased have apparently agreed with him. He wears civilian clothes now, expensive and well-tailored, but his bearing remains military. Behind him, 4 men in tactical gear establish positions that effectively trap everyone inside. "Sergeant Reeves," Sparks says, using her old rank with deliberate condescension. Or should I say, "Former Sergeant Reeves, I heard you've been working as a civilian nurse. How the mighty have fallen." "Colonel Sparks," Evelyn replies evenly, "I heard you died in a car accident. How unfortunate that reports were exaggerated." He smiles, the cold expression she remembers from Syria when he made decisions that traded lives for objectives. "Death can be useful when you need freedom to operate. You should know that better than anyone." The major enters behind Sparks, his hand on his sidearm, but clearly outranked and outmaneuvered. "Sir, this is a military medical facility under my command." "Was under your command," Sparks corrects, producing a tablet showing official orders. "As of 0500 hours, operational control of this facility and all personnel within it has been transferred to Task Force Prometheus. That's my task force." Evelyn recognizes the name, Prometheus, the titan who stole fire from the gods. An appropriate designation for those who traffic in stolen knowledge and forbidden techniques. "Mark," Sparks continues, turning his attention to the man on the table, "I'm genuinely impressed you survived. The compound should have been 100% lethal, but then you always were tougher than statistics suggested. Why?" Mark manages, his voice gaining strength. "Why kill the others?" "Kill them? I didn't kill anyone. They died because they couldn't let go of the past. Each one was offered the same choice. Join Prometheus and continue the research, or face the consequences of knowing too much. They chose poorly. The truth lands like a physical blow. This was never about eliminating witnesses. It was about recruiting them and killing only those who refused, which means, "You want to restart Seraphim?" Evelyn states, understanding flooding through her. "Not restart. Evolve. The protocols you developed in Syria were Generation 1, battlefield expedients created under pressure. Imagine what we could achieve with proper resources, proper test subjects, proper motivation." "Test subjects," Mark spits. "You mean victims." "I mean volunteers who understand that advancing human capability requires sacrifice. The same sacrifice you both made 10 years ago when you agreed to test unproven treatments on yourselves before using them on others." The PJ shifts uncomfortably, beginning to understand that he is witnessing something far beyond a medical emergency. Evelyn catches his eye, noting his position relative to the exits and weapons. He nods slightly. He is ready if needed. "What makes you think we would ever work with you?" Evelyn asks. "Because the alternative is unpleasant. You've already been terminated from your civilian position. Mark is officially dead as of his exposure to the nerve agent. The paperwork is already filed. You have no legal existence, no protection, no recourse. But join Prometheus, and you become valuable assets in a program that will revolutionize military medicine. Revolutionize it into what? A weapon? A tool. Like any medical advance, it can heal or harm depending on application. The choice of how to use it would be yours, within parameters." Evelyn laughs, a bitter sound that makes everyone tense. "Parameters? You mean restrictions that gradually disappear until we're creating biological weapons instead of treatments? You always were too idealistic for your own good. It's what made you brilliant and vulnerable in equal measure." Through the tent walls, Evelyn hears something that Sparks, focused on his recruitment pitch, has missed. The distant rhythm of multiple helicopters approaching from different directions. Not the twin-engine beat of standard military aircraft, but the distinctive sound of specialized aircraft she has not heard in years. Mark hears it too. His eyes meet hers, and she sees the same recognition. Whatever backup Sparks thinks he has, something else is coming, something he did not expect. "You mentioned parameters," she says, buying time. "What exactly would these parameters be?" Sparks relaxes slightly, thinking he is winning. Reasonable restrictions, no testing on unwilling subjects, no development of purely lethal applications. Focus on enhancement and treatment rather than weaponization. And who would enforce these parameters? A joint oversight committee drawn from military and civilian medical authorities. The same authorities who let you fake your death and hunt down Seraphim survivors? His smile falters. That was necessary to protect the program from exposure, or to eliminate anyone who might oppose your version of it. The approaching helicopters are louder now, close enough that everyone hears them. Sparks signals his men, who ready their weapons. The Major reaches for his radio, trying to identify the incoming aircraft. This is Rescue 6 actual to any inbound aircraft. Identify yourself and state your mission. The response comes not through the radio, but through external speakers that boom across the desert. This is Joint Task Force Nemesis. We have authorization from the National Command Authority to assume control of this site. All personnel are ordered to stand down immediately. Nemesis. If Prometheus stole fire from the gods, Nemesis was divine retribution. Someone has chosen their operational names with a classical education and a sense of irony. Sparks' face goes pale. That's impossible. Nemesis was disbanded after... He stops, realizing he has revealed too much. After what? After Seraphim was officially terminated? After the survivors were scattered? After something else that should not be mentioned in front of witnesses? 3 helicopters land simultaneously, disgorging teams in full tactical gear, but with medical insignia prominently displayed. They move with the coordinated precision of Special Operations Forces, but their weapons remain lowered, their approach defensive rather than aggressive. A woman emerges from the lead helicopter, her bearing immediately familiar to Evelyn, despite the years since they last met. General Patricia Morrison, former head of military medical research, officially retired, but apparently very much active. Colonel Sparks, she says, her voice carrying the authority of someone used to absolute obedience. You've been a difficult man to find for someone who's supposed to be dead. General Morrison, I wasn't aware you were involved in this operation. There's quite a lot you're not aware of, Colonel, such as the fact that every communication you've made in the last 3 years has been monitored, every recruitment attempt documented, every death you orchestrated recorded. She turns to Evelyn and Mark, her expression softening marginally. Sergeant Reeves, Lieutenant Danner, on behalf of the United States government, I apologize for what you've endured. You were used as bait to draw out a rogue element we've been tracking since Seraphim was compromised. Bait, Evelyn says flatly. Jane Doe, the nerve agent exposure, all of it? Jane Doe was one of ours, Morrison confirms. A volunteer who knew the risks. The nerve agent was real, but we had teams standing by with conventional treatments that would have saved Mark if you hadn't arrived. We needed Sparks to reveal himself, to show his hand. And the other Seraphim survivors who died? Morrison's expression hardens. Those were real, and Sparks will answer for them. But we couldn't move until we understood the full scope of his network. Every death gave us more information, more connections, more evidence. Mark attempts to sit up, the PJ helping him. You let them die to build a case? We let them die to prevent hundreds more from dying. Sparks wasn't just recruiting for a renewed Seraphim project. He was selling the protocols to the highest bidder. 3 foreign governments have already attempted to implement bastardized versions that killed dozens of test subjects. The weight of this revelation settles over the tent. Seraphim's techniques, designed to save lives under impossible conditions, have been perverted into weapons of assassination and tools of torture. But why bring me here? Evelyn asks. If you could have saved Mark without me, because we needed to confirm that the original protocols still exist in their pure form. The versions Sparks has been selling are incomplete, flawed. They kill more often than they cure. You're the only person left who knows the complete, correct procedures. Evelyn feels the trap closing. They did not just use her as bait. They needed to verify her knowledge, to ensure that somewhere, the real Protocol 17 Romeo survived uncorrupted. You want me to teach it to others, she states. We want you to help us create a new version, one that can't be weaponized, can't be perverted, can't be sold, a purely medical application that remains effective but safe. That's impossible. The entire principle behind the protocol is its adaptability. Lock it down and it becomes useless. Then help us find another way. Help us take what you created and transform it into something that can only heal. Sparks laughs, a harsh sound that draws everyone's attention. You think you've won? You have no idea what you've stumbled into. Seraphim was never just about medical protocols. Tell them, Evelyn. Tell them what you really discovered in Syria. All eyes turn to her. Even Mark looks confused, unaware of secrets she has carried alone for a decade. I don't know what you're talking about, she says carefully. Don't you? Patient Zero, the one who survived what should have been lethal exposure not because of treatment, but because of natural immunity. The one whose blood became the basis for everything that followed. Morrison steps forward. What is he talking about, Sergeant? Evelyn remains silent, but her mind races. Patient Zero, the unnamed Syrian fighter who survived nerve agent exposure that killed everyone else in his unit. The blood samples that revealed biological markers suggesting genetic resistance to entire categories of toxins. The discovery that led to Protocol 17 Romeo and everything that followed. She never reported it, Sparks continues, enjoying the revelation. The holy grail of military medicine, natural immunity to chemical weapons, and she kept it secret. Why do you think I've been so interested in recovering the original Seraphim data? It was never about the protocols. It was about finding Patient Zero or their descendants. Where is Patient Zero now? Morrison demands. Dead, Evelyn says quietly. Killed in an airstrike 3 days after I took the samples. There are no descendants. The bloodline ended with them. But Sparks is smiling. That's what you were told. That's what you believed. But bodies in war zones are notoriously difficult to identify definitively. And someone matching Patient Zero's description was seen in Turkey 2 years ago. Then Jordan, then Nevada. Nevada. The implication hits everyone simultaneously. Patient Zero is not just alive, but here, in the United States. Jane Doe, Mark says suddenly, the woman in the hospital. She had the same symptoms, but also the same unusual resistance pattern. That's why the exposure didn't kill her immediately like it should have. Evelyn's mind races back through the night's events. Jane Doe's symptoms were consistent with nerve agent exposure, but the progression was slower than it should have been. Her body fought the toxin longer than normal human physiology would allow. While the team checks their rugged tablets for mission updates, the narrator quietly notes how modern military units rely on secure, shock-proof devices built for harsh environments. She wasn't a test subject, Evelyn says, understanding flooding through her. She was bait of a different kind. Someone wanted to see if I would recognize the resistance pattern. Someone who knew about Patient Zero. Not someone, Morrison says grimly. Something. What Colonel Sparks hasn't told you is that he's not working alone. He's the front man for a larger organization that's been pursuing genetic resistance to chemical weapons for decades. Seraphim accidentally stumbled onto their holy grail, and they've been trying to recover it ever since. The tactical situation in the tent has shifted dramatically. Sparks's men look uncertain, their weapons still ready, but their conviction wavering. The Major has moved closer to Morrison, clearly aligning with legitimate authority. The PJ stands protectively near Mark, ready to defend his patient. It doesn't matter, Sparks says, but his confidence is cracking. Even if you arrest me, the organization continues. They have resources you can't imagine, reach you can't counter, and they will get what they want eventually. Maybe, Morrison agrees, but not today, and not through you. She signals her teams, who move in to arrest Sparks and his men. There is a moment when violence seems imminent, when hands tighten on weapons and everyone holds their breath. Then Sparks raises his hands, surrendering with the pragmatism of someone who knows when a tactical retreat is necessary. As they lead him away, he calls back to Evelyn. Ask yourself why they really brought you here. Ask yourself what they want from you that they're not saying. The game isn't over. It's just changed players. Morrison watches him go, then turns back to Evelyn and Mark. He's not wrong about the larger organization. We've been tracking them for years without getting close to their leadership. But today's operation has given us the biggest breakthrough we've had. Let me guess, Evelyn says tiredly. You need our help to continue the investigation. I need your help to end this permanently. The organization hunting Seraphim survivors won't stop just because we arrested Sparks. But with your knowledge and Mark's intelligence network, we might be able to dismantle them completely. Mark struggles to his feet, the PJ steadying him. My intelligence network? You didn't think you survived 10 years underground without help, did you? You've been part of a protective program, whether you knew it or not. Every close call you've had, every near miss with Discovery, we were there making sure you stayed safe. Safe? Mark's voice rises with anger. I've been living as a ghost for a decade. That's your idea of safe? Alive is safe in this context. Ask the other 6 Seraphim survivors how they're doing. The callousness of the response silences everyone, but there is truth in it. Whatever protection Mark received, however limited, kept him breathing while others died. "What happens now?" Evelyn asks, exhaustion creeping into her voice. The adrenaline that has sustained her is fading, leaving only the bone-deep weariness of someone who has been running, hiding, and fighting for too long. Now you have a choice. Work with us to refine and protect the Seraphim protocols while helping us dismantle the organization hunting them. Or walk away, return to your civilian life, and hope they don't find you again. That's not much of a choice. It's more than the others got. Evelyn looks at Mark, seeing her own thoughts reflected in his eyes. They are trapped between equally dangerous options, with no good path forward. But perhaps that has always been their fate since that day in Syria, when they discovered something that should have remained hidden. "I need guarantees," Evelyn says. "Real protection, not just surveillance. Actual authority over how the protocols are used, and full disclosure about patient 0 and any surviving biological samples." Morrison nods. "Done. Anything else?" "Yes. I want to know who Jane Doe really was. Not the cover story, not the official version. The truth." There is a long pause before Morrison answers. "She was my daughter. Volunteered for the exposure because she believed in stopping sparks and protecting the protocols. She knew the risks." The revelation reshapes everything. Morrison has not just been running an operation. She has been seeking justice for her child's death while trying to prevent others. "Did she know about patient 0? Evelyn asks gently. "She discovered the connection, found references in classified databases that shouldn't have existed. That's what led us to Sparks and his organization. Her death wasn't just bait. It was the culmination of 2 years of investigation." "I tried to save her," Evelyn says. "The protocols would have worked if she'd been brought in sooner." "I know. The delay was intentional, to make her death seem real to anyone watching. She knew that too. The weight of sacrifice hangs heavy in the desert air. Jane Doe, Morrison's daughter, gave her life to expose a conspiracy that threatened untold numbers. The other Seraphim survivors died without knowing why. Mark lived a decade in shadows. Evelyn hid her true nature behind the facade of an ordinary nurse. All because 13 years ago, in a Syrian field hospital, she discovered something extraordinary in the blood of a dying fighter. "The coordinates," Evelyn says suddenly, remembering Mark's tattoo. 36.2369 north, 115.2888 west. That's here. That's this exact location. Mark nods slowly. "I knew that someday someone would come for me. I marked the place where I wanted to make my stand, where I wanted the truth to finally come out." "You've been planning this?" "Not planning, preparing. There's a difference. I didn't know when or how, but I knew this day would come. The day when all the secrets would collapse and we'd have to choose sides definitively." Morrison checks her tablet, reading updates from her teams. "Sparks is secure. His men are cooperating. We have enough evidence to begin rolling up his network, but there's something else you both need to know." She pauses, choosing her words carefully. "Patient 0 isn't dead. Sparks was telling the truth about that. We've been tracking someone matching their biological signature across multiple countries. They're not just alive. They're actively hunting the same organization we are." "Hunting them?" Evelyn asks. "Why?" "Because the organization killed their family trying to capture them. They've spent 10 years seeking revenge, while we've spent it seeking justice. Our paths are about to converge, and when they do, we need to be ready." "Ready for what?" "For the war that's been brewing since Seraphim was first conceived. A war between those who would weaponize medical miracles and those who would preserve them. You two are going to help tip the balance." The sun is fully up now, desert heat beginning to build, even in the climate-controlled tent. Outside, helicopters continue to arrive and depart, ferrying personnel and equipment for an operation that will reshape the hidden world of military medical research. Evelyn looks at her hands, steady despite everything she has endured. These hands have saved lives, signed away careers, hidden knowledge that could revolutionize or destroy depending on its use. Now they must choose what to do next. "If we agree to help," she says, "we do it our way. No more secrets between us. No more using people as bait. No more sacrificing individuals for hypothetical greater goods." "Agreed," Morrison says immediately. "We need you both intact and committed. That means transparency and respect for your boundaries." "And if patient 0 surfaces?" then you'll be the ones to make contact. You're the only person who might be able to convince them we're not the enemy. Mark stands fully now, his recovery remarkable, given what his body has endured. We'll need resources, real support, not just promises. And we'll need to know everything, every operation, every target, every objective. You'll have it all. We're establishing a new task force specifically for this mission. Joint military-civilian oversight, full funding, and complete autonomy within agreed parameters. What will it be called? Evelyn asks, though she suspects she knows. Task Force Seraphim. It seems appropriate to reclaim the name from those who perverted it. Evelyn and Mark exchange glances. The name carries weight, memories of Syria, of desperate innovations under fire, of discoveries that changed everything, but also of betrayal, of hunted survivors, of knowledge that extracted a terrible price. Give us 24 hours, Evelyn says, to decide. You have 12. The organization won't wait while we deliberate. Every hour we delay, they regroup and replan. Morrison leaves them alone in the tent with the PJ, who has remained silent throughout these revelations. As the general exits, she pauses at the entrance. Sergeant Reeves, whatever you decide, know this. Your actions today save not just Lieutenant Danner, but potentially thousands of others. The protocols you created, properly controlled, could revolutionize trauma medicine. Don't let Sparks and his ilk define their legacy. After Morrison leaves, the tent falls into a silence broken only by the hum of medical equipment and the distant sound of helicopters. The PJ, who has witnessed more than he probably ever expected, finally speaks. Ma'am, what I just saw, the procedures you used, they're not in any manual. No, Evelyn agrees. They're not. And if you're smart, you'll forget you ever saw them. Forget seeing someone bring a man back from certain death? Not likely. He pauses, then adds, My brother died from nerve agent exposure in Afghanistan. The medics tried everything. Nothing worked. If they'd known what you know, then the knowledge would have spread, been corrupted, weaponized, and caused more deaths than it prevented. Sometimes the cure is worse than the disease if it falls into the wrong hands. Mark tests his mobility, each movement careful but increasingly confident. She's right. I've spent 10 years watching what happens when medical breakthroughs become military assets. The original intent gets lost in the translation from healing to harming. But people are dying who could be saved, the PJ protests. And people would die who should be saved if this knowledge became widespread, Evelyn counters. Imagine every terrorist organization, every rogue state, every criminal enterprise knowing exactly how to create nerve agents that only a handful of people can counter. The death toll would be catastrophic. The young man absorbs this, his idealism warring with pragmatism. It is a battle Evelyn remembers well from her own youth, before Syria, before Seraphim, before she learned that some knowledge comes with a price too high to pay. What's your name? She asks him. Staff Sergeant Rodriguez, Miguel Rodriguez. Well, Miguel, you're now one of maybe 10 people on Earth who know Protocol 17 Romeo exists. That makes you either very lucky or very cursed, depending on your perspective. What happens to me now? Mark answers before Evelyn can. You get a choice. Sign a non-disclosure agreement so comprehensive, it'll make your security clearance look like a library card. Forget everything you saw here and go back to your unit. Or you become part of whatever comes next. Fair warning, everyone who's been part of Seraphim has paid a price. Some paid with their lives. Others, like us, paid with their freedom. Rodriguez considers this, his youth warring with the gravity of the decision. Do I have to decide now? You have about 10 hours, Evelyn says. Same as us. A commotion outside draws their attention. Through the tent walls, they hear raised voices, someone demanding entry, others refusing. The voice is familiar, Dr. Harrison Webb, somehow here despite having no legitimate reason to be. I demand to see her immediately. She was my employee. I have rights. Mark and Evelyn exchange glances. Webb's arrival is too convenient, too coincidental. In their world, coincidences are usually enemy action in disguise. The tent flap opens, and Webb enters, flanked by two of Morrison's security personnel. His face is flushed with exertion and anger, his usually immaculate appearance disheveled from what must have been a rapid journey from the hospital. Evelyn, he says, his tone mixing authority with something else. Fear? You need to come with me immediately. There's been a development at the hospital. Dr. Webb, Mark says, standing despite his recent ordeal. "You're a long way from your emergency room." Webb barely glances at him. "This doesn't concern you. Evelyn, please, it's about the patient from tonight, Jane Doe. She wasn't the only one." Evelyn's blood chills. "What do you mean she wasn't the only one?" 3 more patients have arrived in the last hour. Same symptoms, same progression, same resistance pattern. But they're alive, conscious, and they're asking for you by name. The security personnel tense, hands moving to weapons. This is not part of any plan they were briefed on. "How did you know where to find me?" Evelyn asks, noting the details that do not fit. Webb's shoes are wrong for someone who drove here. Too clean, no desert dust. His clothes show no signs of the helicopter ride that would have been necessary to arrive so quickly. "General Morrison told me," Webb says, but his eyes shift left, the classic tell of deception. "Morrison would never reveal this location to a civilian," Mark states flatly. "Try again." Webb's facade cracks slightly. "Fine. I was contacted by someone who said you were in danger. They told me where you were and said I needed to bring you back immediately." "Who contacted you?" "I don't know. The call came through the hospital's emergency line, but they knew things about the patient, about you, about something called Seraphim." Evelyn sees it now. Webb is not part of the conspiracy. He is another pawn, moved into position by someone playing a deeper game, someone who knew she would be here, knew Webb would come, knew exactly how this would play out. "The 3 patients," she says, "describe them. 2 men, 1 woman, all appearing Middle Eastern, all speaking accented English. They arrived separately but within minutes of each other. And Evelyn, they all have the same tattoo. Numbers and letters that don't make sense." "What numbers?" Webb pulls out his phone, shows a photo he managed to take. The tattoo is clear. SR1, SR3, SR5. Seraphim, subjects 1, 3, and 5. 3 of the original test subjects from Syria, supposedly dead for a decade, very much alive and in Las Vegas. Subscribe now to see what happens when military secrets literally drop from the sky to find you. "It's a trap," Mark says immediately. "Has to be. 3 Seraphim subjects appearing simultaneously. Someone's flushing us out." But Evelyn is thinking differently. The resistance pattern, the timing, the specific subjects who survived. There is a message here, coded in biological markers and tactical positioning. "Not a trap," she says slowly. "A reunion. They're not asking for me randomly. They know I'm the only one who can read what their bodies are telling us." "Ma'am," Rodriguez interrupts, monitoring equipment behind them. "We have multiple vehicles approaching from the southeast. Not military configuration." Through the tent walls, the sound of engines grows louder. Not the regulated hum of military vehicles, but the varied notes of civilian cars and trucks. Morrison's security teams are reacting, calling in reports, establishing defensive positions. "Dr. Webb," Evelyn says urgently, "did anyone follow you here?" I don't think so. I mean, I didn't check. Why would anyone follow me?" The answer comes in the form of 20 vehicles creating a dust cloud as they converge on the field hospital. They stop just outside the perimeter Morrison's teams have established. Engines running, waiting. A single figure exits the lead vehicle and walks toward the checkpoint. Even from a distance, Evelyn recognizes the gait, the slightly uneven stride of someone who survived catastrophic injury and adapted. As the figure gets closer, recognition becomes certainty. Patient 0, the Syrian fighter whose blood started everything. Not dead, not hiding, but walking directly into a military installation in broad daylight. Morrison's voice crackles over the radio. "All units hold fire. Repeat, weapons hold. Let them approach." Patient 0 stops at the checkpoint, raises their hands showing empty palms, and speaks in accented but clear English. "I am here for Evelyn Reeves. She has something that belongs to me, and I have something that belongs to her." Mark grabs a radio. "General Morrison, this could be—" "I know what it could be, Lieutenant, but it could also be our only chance to end this peacefully. Sergeant Reeves, are you willing to meet with them?" Evelyn is already moving toward the tent exit. "I've been waiting 10 years for this conversation." "Evelyn, no," Mark protests. "We don't know their intentions." "Yes, we do. If they wanted me dead, they wouldn't have announced themselves. They want what everyone wants, the complete Protocol 17 Romeo, but, unlike the others, they have a legitimate claim to it." She steps outside into the desert heat, the sun now high enough to create sharp shadows. Patient Zero stands 50 meters away, and as Evelyn approaches, she can see the toll 10 years of survival has taken. Scars cross exposed skin, evidence of multiple surgeries, multiple exposures, multiple near-death experiences. Dr. Reeves, Patient Zero says when she is close enough, though I understand you prefer nurse now. You speak English well for someone who supposedly died in Syria. Death, like many things, was exaggerated for convenience. My name is Samir al-Rashid. You saved my life 13 years ago, though I doubt you remember one patient among hundreds. But Evelyn does remember. The young fighter brought in more dead than alive, exposed to something that had killed his entire unit in minutes. The blood samples that showed impossible resistance. The discovery that changed everything. I remember. You were conscious when they brought you in. You kept saying something in Arabic. They must not know. I was delirious, but even then, I understood that my survival would make me a target. Yet here you are, very publicly alive. Samir smiles, an expression that does not reach his eyes. The time for hiding has passed. Sparks has been arrested. Morrison thinks she has won, but they do not understand what they have stumbled into. Enlighten me. The organization hunting Seraphim survivors is not what you think. They are not trying to weaponize your protocols. They already have weapons far more sophisticated. What they want is the genetic key that makes certain people naturally resistant to their weapons. The implication is staggering. An arms race in reverse, not building better weapons, but creating better defenses, then ensuring only select populations have access to them. The 3 patients at the hospital, Evelyn says, they're like you? My children, not biological. Genetic descendants created through processes you would find horrifying. The organization has been trying to replicate natural immunity for decades. When they learned about me, about what my blood could do, they tried to harvest it. When I escaped, they tried to recreate it. The 3 in your hospital are their failures. Alive but imperfect, carrying partial immunity that causes more suffering than protection. And you want me to what? Perfect the process? I want you to destroy it, completely. Every sample, every record, every possibility of recreation. The human body was not meant to be engineered against specific weapons. That path leads only to an endless escalation of biological warfare. Behind them, Morrison's teams maintain their positions, weapons lowered but ready. The vehicles surrounding the perimeter have not moved, their occupants invisible behind tinted windows. How many people are with you? Evelyn asks. 43, all survivors of the organization's experiments, all partially immune, partially damaged, all willing to die to prevent others from suffering our fate. That's not necessary. Morrison wants to stop them too. Morrison wants to control them. There is a difference. She speaks of justice and protection, but she still sees the protocols as tools to be managed rather than dangers to be eliminated. Mark approaches from the medical tent, walking slowly but steadily. His recovery continues to amaze even Evelyn, who knows exactly why his body responds so well to treatment. Samir al-Rashid, Mark says, I've been looking for you for 5 years. Lieutenant Danner, I heard you died. A useful fiction, like yours. They regard each other with the mutual respect of survivors who have paid similar prices for similar knowledge. You know why I'm here, Samir says. You want to trade? Mark responds. Your genetic material for the complete protocols, mutual assured destruction if either side betrays the other. Close. I want to combine them, then destroy the combination. Create a perfect synthesis that we then ensure no one can ever recreate. That's insane, Webb interjects, having followed them outside. You're talking about destroying medical breakthroughs that could save millions, or kill billions if weaponized, Samir counters. Dr. Webb, you fired Nurse Reeves for not following protocols. But did you ever ask yourself why someone with her skills was working night shifts in a civilian hospital? Why someone capable of the procedures she performed today was content to be treated as disposable labor? Webb has no answer. The contradiction has been nagging at him since he witnessed the helicopter evacuation. She was hiding, Samir continues, from people like Sparks, from organizations that would use her knowledge for horror, from a world that cannot be trusted with certain truths. But people are dying. People die regardless. The question is whether they die from natural causes or from weapons we create in the name of preventing death. Evelyn interrupts the philosophical debate. The 3 patients at the hospital, what will happen to them without treatment? They will survive but suffer. Their partial immunity causes constant low-level reactions. Pain, neurological dysfunction, shortened lifespan. They volunteered to expose themselves to prove the organization's experiments have failed. I could help them? At what cost? The moment you treat them successfully, you validate the research. Others will want the same treatment. The knowledge will spread. So we let them suffer? We let them choose. That is why they came to you, not for treatment, but for the right to decide their own fate. Morrison's voice comes over a loudspeaker. This discussion needs to move inside. We have satellite surveillance detecting multiple aircraft approaching from various directions. ETA approximately 15 minutes. The organization, Samir says calmly. They have been monitoring everything. Sparks's arrest triggered contingency protocols. They are coming to recover what they consider their property. Then we need to move, Mark says urgently. No, we need to make a stand. Here, now, with all the players visible and all the cards on the table. Evelyn understands. This is not just about the protocols or the genetic immunity. It is about forcing a confrontation that has been brewing for 13 years, bringing all the hidden players into the light. Inside, she decides. We need to prepare. They move quickly back to the medical tent, which has become an impromptu command center. Rodriguez has been monitoring communications, his face increasingly grim. Ma'am, we have problems. Multiple aircraft, various types, all converging on this location. General Morrison is requesting immediate evacuation of all personnel. No, Evelyn says firmly. We stay. This ends today. She turns to Samir. Your people in those vehicles, are they armed? Some. Mostly they are witnesses. Survivors who deserve to see justice done. Call them in, all of them. If the organization wants a confrontation, let's make it public. Mark understands immediately. You want witnesses, multiple witnesses from multiple sources. I want the truth visible, no more shadows, no more secrets. If we're going to destroy this knowledge, everyone needs to understand why. Samir nods, pulls out a phone, speaks rapidly in Arabic. Within moments, the vehicles begin disgorging their occupants. Men and women of various ages, all bearing the subtle signs of biological trauma, all moving with the careful deliberation of those who have learned not to trust their own bodies. Morrison enters the tent, her calm facade cracking. Sergeant Reeves, what are you doing? We cannot protect this many civilians. We're not protecting them. They're protecting us. Every one of them is evidence of what happens when Protocol 17 Romeo is perverted. Every one of them is a reason to end this permanently. The incoming aircraft will have to explain to 43 witnesses why they're attacking a medical facility. In the age of cell phones and social media, even black operations have limits. As if to prove her point, several of Samir's people pull out phones, beginning to record everything happening around them. You're forcing transparency, Morrison realizes. I'm ending the game. No more hunting in shadows. No more classified procedures. No more hidden victims. The first aircraft appears on the horizon, a sleek corporate jet that would look at home at any executive airport. It circles once, then lands on the flat desert beyond the perimeter. 3 more aircraft follow, each maintaining careful separation, each disgorging well-dressed individuals who look more like board members than soldiers. Veterans like Mark often rely on specialized financial advisors who understand military pensions and help transition those benefits into civilian security. The organization's leadership, Samir says quietly, they never come into the field unless the stakes are ultimate. A delegation of 5 approaches the medical facility. The lead figure is a woman in her 60s, silver hair pulled back severely, wearing a suit that probably costs more than most people's cars. She stops at the perimeter Morrison's teams have established. General Morrison, she calls out, I'm Director Catherine Vance, Prometheus Pharmaceutical. I believe you have several of our assets in your custody. Prometheus Pharmaceutical doesn't exist, Morrison responds through the speaker. Not publicly, but we've been operating for 30 years, developing medical countermeasures for threats that don't officially exist. Colonel Sparks was merely a contractor. His methods were unauthorized and regrettable. His murders were unauthorized? His failures were regrettable. The deaths were necessary to protect information worth more than individual lives. The casual dismissal of human life chills everyone listening. This is the true face of the organization: corporate, calculating, utterly amoral. We're prepared to offer a deal, Vance continues. Full amnesty for everyone involved, generous compensation for the families of the deceased, continued funding for legitimate medical research under proper oversight. And in return, Morrison asks, the complete Protocol 17 Romeo, all genetic samples from patient 0 and his derivatives, and the cooperation of Sergeant Reeves in refining the procedures. No, Evelyn says, stepping outside where Vance can see her. Ah, the famous Evelyn Reeves, or should I say infamous. Do you know how many people have died because you refused to share your knowledge? Fewer than would have died if I had shared it with people like you. People like me fund the research that saves lives. We take the risks others won't. We develop the treatments others can't. You experiment on human beings. We accelerate evolution. Natural immunity to chemical weapons exists. Samir al-Rashid proves that. We're simply trying to democratize that immunity. Democratize? You mean weaponize? Create a population immune to your weapons, while everyone else remains vulnerable. Vance smiles coldly. That's one application. There are others, more humanitarian. Imagine emergency responders immune to chemical hazards, soldiers who can rescue victims from contaminated zones, medical personnel who can work in any environment. Imagine a world where chemical weapons become obsolete because everyone is immune, Samir says, joining them outside. Exactly our goal, Vance agrees. Universal immunity ends chemical warfare forever. No, it starts a new arms race. Biological weapons to overcome biological defenses, genetic modifications to counter genetic immunities, an endless escalation with humanity itself as the battlefield. The philosophical argument draws everyone's attention, but Evelyn notices something others miss. Rodriguez is signaling from inside the tent. Something on his equipment needs immediate attention. She steps back inside, sees what he has discovered. The medical monitors connected to Mark are showing anomalies. His recovery is not just remarkable, it is impossible. Cellular regeneration at rates that should not exist. Neural pathways rebuilding faster than human biology allows. Rodriguez, how long has this been happening? Since about 10 minutes after you completed the protocol. His cells are... They're not just healing, they're improving. Evelyn's blood runs cold. This was not part of Protocol 17 Romeo. This is something else, something that should not be possible, unless... She thinks back to that night in Syria. The experimental combinations she tried in desperation. The one variant that seemed too dangerous to ever repeat. The variant she never documented because its implications were too terrifying. Mark has not just been treated with Protocol 17 Romeo, he has been exposed to something she created by accident and buried by intention. Protocol 18 Alpha. The protocol that does not just heal but enhances. The protocol that could create super soldiers if anyone knew it existed. Mark, she says urgently, we need to run tests, now. He sees her expression, understands something is wrong, but before they can act, alarms sound throughout the facility. Morrison's teams are moving to defensive positions. The aircraft that landed have disgorged not diplomats, but tactical teams. So much for negotiation, Morrison says grimly. Vance's voice comes over the radio she should not have. You have 2 minutes to surrender the assets peacefully. After that, we take them forcefully. You're attacking a military installation, Morrison responds. That's an act of war. We're recovering stolen property, the protocols, the genetic material, even Sergeant Reeves herself. All developed using funding that originated from us. Check your budget allocations for the past 15 years, General. See how many black projects trace back to Prometheus. Morrison's face pales. She pulls out a secure tablet, runs queries that should reveal funding sources. What she finds destroys her confidence. That's impossible. That's reality. We own you, General. We own Seraphim. We own everyone in that tent. The only question is whether you surrender peacefully or we demonstrate why opposing us is futile. Evelyn makes a decision that surprises everyone, including herself. She walks outside, past Morrison's defensive line, directly toward Vance and her tactical teams. You want Protocol 17 Romeo? She calls out. I'll give it to you. Evelyn, no, Mark shouts from the tent. She continues walking, but not the incomplete version Sparks was peddling. The complete protocol, all 17 steps. with the adjustments necessary for different genetic profiles. Vance signals her teams to hold. And in exchange, safe passage for everyone here. No retaliation, no hunting, no future contact. You get what you want, we disappear. Agreed. But Evelyn is not finished. I'll need 1 hour to document everything properly, and I'll need Samir's genetic material to show how the protocol interacts with natural immunity. 1 hour. Evelyn returns to the tent where everyone stares at her in shock. Mark grabs her arm. You can't give them the protocol. You know what they'll do with it. I know exactly what they'll do with it, she says calmly. Then, louder for any listening devices, I need everyone out except Samir and Mark. What I'm about to do requires absolute concentration. Morrison protests, but Evelyn's expression brooks no argument. Gradually, the tent empties until only the three of them remain. You're not giving them the real protocol, Samir says. It is not a question. I'm giving them exactly what they deserve. A version that will work perfectly in demonstrations, show amazing results in initial tests, and then fail catastrophically when deployed at scale. That's murder, Mark says. No, it's justice. They'll test it on volunteers first, their own people who believe in the cause. When it fails, they'll assume they made errors, try again, fail again. By the time they realize the protocol itself is flawed, their credibility will be destroyed. And the real protocol dies with us, today, here. She turns to Samir. I need your blood. Not much, just enough to encode the destruction sequence. He offers his arm without hesitation. As she draws the sample, she explains, your natural immunity isn't just resistance, it's adaptation. Your cells learn from exposure, become stronger, but there's a limit. Push too hard, and the adaptation becomes cancerous. That's what I'm going to give them, a protocol that triggers runaway adaptation. They'll figure it out eventually, Mark warns, not before it destroys their entire program, and by then, we'll be gone. She works quickly, combining real procedures with subtle falsifications. The document she creates is a masterpiece of deception, completely believable, technically accurate, and absolutely lethal if followed precisely. There's something else, she tells Mark quietly. Your recovery. It's not just Protocol 17 Romeo. You've been exposed to something else. What do you mean? I mean you're changing, improving, becoming something more than human. It's reversible, but only if we act now. And if we don't, then you become proof that enhancement is possible. You become the thing everyone will hunt. Mark considers this for exactly 3 seconds. Then we reverse it. I've been hunted enough for 1 lifetime. Evelyn prepares the reversal, but her hands shake slightly. She knows what she is about to do. Destroy not just the false protocol, but all traces of the real one. The knowledge that could save lives will die to prevent it from taking lives. Are we doing the right thing? She asks Samir. There is no right thing, only the least wrong thing. And letting this knowledge survive is the most wrong thing we could do. Outside, Vance's patience wears thin. 5 minutes remaining. Evelyn completes the false documentation, loads it onto a drive that also contains a virus designed to corrupt any system that tries to copy it more than once. Vance will get 1 chance to review the data before it self-destructs. The reversal for Mark will take a few minutes, she says. We need a distraction. Samir smiles. I have 43 people outside who have been waiting years for a chance to confront their tormentors. I think we can manage a distraction. He steps outside, shouts something in Arabic. The response is immediate. 43 voices raised in protest. 43 survivors demanding justice. 43 witnesses to atrocities that Prometheus wants hidden. They advance on Vance's position, not aggressively but inexorably. Their phones stream live to social media platforms worldwide. The corporate tactical teams do not know how to respond to unarmed civilians broadcasting their every move. Inside the tent, Evelyn works frantically to reverse Mark's enhancement. The process is painful. She can see it in his clenched jaw and white knuckles, but it is necessary. What she accidentally gave him must not be allowed to survive. Almost done, she whispers. Just hold on. Evelyn, he gasps. If something happens to me, nothing will happen. I won't let it. But even as she says it, she hears the helicopters returning. Not Morrison's aircraft, but something else. Something unexpected. Rodriguez bursts into the tent. Ma'am, we have a problem. Those aren't military aircraft. They're media helicopters. Someone leaked our location to the press. Through the tent walls, they can hear reporters already broadcasting. Standoff at a secret military facility in the Nevada desert. Witnesses claim human experimentation, chemical weapons, and a cover-up spanning decades. Evelyn smiles despite everything. Samir didn't just bring witnesses, he brought insurance. The reversal completes just as Vance's voice cuts through the chaos. This changes nothing. We have legal authority. You have nothing, Morrison interrupts over the speakers. Media presence means official oversight, congressional hearings, public scrutiny. Your organization just died, Director Vance. The sound of vehicles approaching adds to the chaos. Military vehicles, but not from Nellis. These bear the markings of different units, different commands. Someone very high up has decided to intervene. A new voice booms from helicopter speakers. This is General Patterson, Joint Chiefs. All personnel are ordered to stand down immediately. This facility is now under direct Pentagon control. Evelyn knows that name. Patterson was part of the original Seraphim oversight before it was classified beyond his clearance. He has been waiting 13 years for answers. Sergeant Reeves, Patterson's voice continues, please exit the medical facility. We need to talk. She helps Mark stand. He is weak but stable, the enhancement reversed but leaving him depleted. Together they walk outside into a scene from a fever dream. Media helicopters circle overhead. Samir's survivors stand in a protective formation. Vance's tactical teams have been surrounded by actual military forces. And in the middle of it all, General Patterson stands like a pillar of institutional authority. Evelyn Reeves, he says formally, you've caused quite a stir. Just trying to save a life, sir? Save it or change it? He looks meaningfully at Mark. We've been monitoring the medical telemetry. What you did in there wasn't just treatment. No, she admits. It was correction of an error. And this an error that could revolutionize human capability. And some an error that could destroy human identity. Patterson nods slowly. The Joint Chiefs agree, which is why we're here to ensure all research materials are secured and destroyed. I have what they want, Evelyn says, holding up the drive. The false protocol that will destroy their program. Give it to them, Patterson orders. Let them hang themselves with their own rope. Evelyn walks to Vance, hands over the drive. Everything you wanted. Use it wisely. Vance snatches it eagerly. You'll regret this. When we perfect the process, when we create true immunity, you'll beg to be part of it. I'll be too busy living a normal life to notice. Vance signals her teams to withdraw. They board their aircraft quickly, eager to escape before more authorities arrive. As the last plane takes off, Patterson turns to address everyone present. What happened here today is classified beyond any level most of you have encountered. The media will be told this was a training exercise. The survivors will receive full medical care and compensation. And Protocol 17 Romeo will be officially declared a failed experiment, all materials destroyed. And unofficially, Morrison asks, unofficially, 3 copies will be maintained in separate maximum security facilities, available only in case of extreme national emergency and only with presidential authorization. That's not enough security, Evelyn protests. It's what the Joint Chiefs have decided. Unless you have a better idea, she does. Encoded in living memory. 3 people, unknown to each other, each carrying part of the complete protocol. Only when all 3 agree to cooperate can the full protocol be reconstructed. And these 3 people, chosen randomly from those here today, changed regularly so no one person carries the burden too long. Patterson considers this. Agreed. General Morrison will oversee the selection and rotation. The immediate crisis resolved. People begin to disperse. The media helicopters are escorted away by military aircraft. Samir's survivors are taken for medical evaluation and debriefing. The facility begins returning to normal operations. But Evelyn knows nothing will ever be normal again. She has destroyed her life's work to save lives. She has hidden knowledge that could help thousands to prevent it from killing millions. Dr. Webb approaches hesitantly. Evelyn, I owe you an apology. You owe me nothing. You did what you thought was right. I fired you for not following protocols, but you were following protocols I couldn't even imagine. I was doing my job, nothing more. Your job? Your job was to be a night shift nurse in a civilian hospital. This was something else entirely. No, she says quietly, this was exactly my job. To know when to act and when not to act. To save who can be saved and accept who cannot. To keep dangerous knowledge from dangerous people. That's what nurses do, Dr. Webb. We protect our patients, even from themselves. Webb nods slowly, understanding finally dawning. The hospital board wants to offer you reinstatement, full back pay, commendation, whatever you want. I want nothing. That life is over. Then what will you do? She looks at Mark, recovering slowly but surely. At Samir, who has spent 10 years fighting shadows. At Rodriguez, young and idealistic and about to learn how heavy secrets can be. I'm going to disappear, properly this time. Somewhere no one will look for a middle-aged woman with medical training. Where? Wherever people need help but don't ask questions. Morrison approaches with final paperwork. Sergeant Reeves, we need your signature on the classification documents. I'm not a sergeant anymore. You are, according to these papers. Full reinstatement, backdated 10 years. Honorable discharge with full benefits as of today. It's the least we can do. Evelyn signs where indicated, each signature feeling like another nail in the coffin of her old life. There's one more thing, Morrison says quietly. Jane Doe, my daughter, I know you tried to save her. I'm sorry I couldn't. She knew the risks. She volunteered because she believed in stopping this, in stopping people like her father. Her father? Director Vance, her maiden name. She spent 2 years gathering evidence against her own father's organization. Her death was the only way to bring him into the open. Another sacrifice, another family destroyed by the pursuit of dangerous knowledge. She was brave, Evelyn says simply. She was stupid. But brave and stupid sometimes look the same from a distance. The sun sets over the Nevada desert, painting the landscape in shades of red and gold. The field hospital is being dismantled, all traces of the day's events erased. Soon, it will be as if none of this happened. Mark finds Evelyn standing alone, watching the sunset. So, what now? He asks. Now, we disappear. Separately, no contact for at least a year. And after that? After that, we see if the world has forgotten about us. The world never forgets, Evelyn. It just gets distracted by newer crises. Then we wait for the next crisis to provide cover for our disappearance. Samir joins them, his people loaded into military vehicles for transportation to medical facilities. I owe you a debt, he says to Evelyn. You owe me nothing. If anyone owes anyone, I owe you. Your blood, your sacrifice, made the protocols possible. And your conscience made them dangerous. Perhaps that's the lesson here, that some knowledge is too powerful for any one person or organization to control. Or perhaps the lesson is simpler, Mark suggests. Perhaps it's that humans always find ways to corrupt healing into harming. Cynical, Evelyn observes. Realistic. I've spent 10 years watching good intentions become weapons. At some point, you have to accept that the problem isn't the knowledge, it's us. Rodriguez approaches hesitantly. Ma'am, I've made my decision. And I want to forget everything. I want to go back to my unit and pretend this never happened. Smart choice, Evelyn approves. Morrison will arrange the memory suppression protocols. Chemical, not surgical. You'll have gaps, but you'll be safe. Will I remember you? You'll remember a nurse who saved a pilot's life. Nothing more specific than that. Rodriguez nods, relief visible on his young face. He salutes, then walks away to begin the process of forgetting. He's the smart one, Mark says. The rest of us have to live with this knowledge. Living with knowledge is what humans do, Samir says philosophically. It's what we do with that knowledge that defines us. A final helicopter arrives, unmarked, black, official, without being specific. Morrison signals it is time to go. Separate helicopters, she says. Separate destinations. Separate lives. That's the deal. Evelyn nods, understanding. This is not goodbye. This is erasure. After tonight, Evelyn Reeves ceases to exist except in classified files that few will ever see. She boards her designated helicopter without looking back. As it lifts off, she sees Mark boarding his, Samir boarding another. 3 people who changed history, now being scattered to prevent history from repeating. The pilot speaks through her headset. Where to, ma'am? Somewhere quiet. Somewhere nobody looks twice at another nurse trying to help. I know just the place. As the helicopter flies into the darkness, Evelyn closes her eyes and allows herself one moment of satisfaction. She has saved Mark's life, prevented a biological weapons catastrophe, and destroyed knowledge too dangerous to exist. Tomorrow, she will be someone else. Another identity, another life, another chance to help without the burden of deadly knowledge. But tonight, for just these few minutes, she is still Evelyn Reeves, the woman who knew too much, saved too many, and paid the price for both. Below, the desert swallows all evidence of the day's events. The field hospital is gone, the vehicles dispersed, the witnesses scattered. By dawn, it will be as if none of this happened, except in the classified files that will never see daylight, except in the memories of those who cannot forget, except in the false protocol now racing toward Prometheus Laboratories, carrying within it the seeds of their destruction. Vance will discover the trap too late. Her organization will attempt the procedures, achieve initial success, then watch in horror as their test subjects develop aggressive cancers within weeks. The public scandal will destroy Prometheus, though the truth of why their experiments failed will never be revealed. Sparks will die in federal custody, officially suicide, actually assassination by Prometheus operatives ensuring his silence. His secrets die with him, taking the last institutional knowledge of the corrupted protocols. Morrison will oversee the division and encoding of the true protocol, 17 Romeo, ensuring it survives but can never again be consolidated in one place or person. She will retire shortly after, her daughter's sacrifice having achieved its purpose. Patterson will return to the Pentagon with a report so classified that even its existence is denied. The Joint Chiefs will debate, argue, and ultimately agree some knowledge must be preserved but never used. Rodriguez will wake tomorrow with gaps in his memory, a commendation he does not remember earning, and a deep aversion to ever working in military medicine again. He will become a teacher, inspiring young medics without knowing why he feels so strongly about ethical treatment. Samir and his survivors will receive treatment that helps but does not cure, managing their conditions while living testimony to the dangers of biological enhancement. They will form a support network, helping each other while watching for any sign of Prometheus's resurrection. Mark will disappear into witness protection so deep that even he does not know where he is going. New name, new history, new life built on the ashes of the old. He will always carry the memory of dying twice and being saved by the same woman. And Evelyn will become someone else entirely, a small-town nurse in a place where nobody asks questions about the past. She will save lives in small ways, ordinary ways, safe ways. She will never again touch the knowledge that made her famous in classified circles. The helicopter flies on through the night, carrying her toward a future stripped of everything except the simple act of healing. It is enough. It has to be. As the first stars appear in the desert sky, she whispers the words that will become her new mantra. First, do no harm. Even if that means doing nothing at all. Even if that means letting knowledge die. Even if that means the world will never know what she sacrificed to keep it safe. The story ends where it began, with a nurse losing everything to save lives. But this time, she chooses the loss. This time, she controls the outcome. This time, she wins by refusing to play. The helicopter disappears into the darkness, taking with it the last keeper of secrets too dangerous to share. Behind it, the desert returns to silence, keeping its own secrets beneath endless sand. In a hospital in Las Vegas, 3 patients with strange symptoms recover naturally, their bodies fighting off toxins that should have killed them. They leave without explaining who they are or why they came. In a military facility that does not officially exist, classified files are created, encoded, and scattered to prevent anyone from ever again consolidating Protocol 17 Romeo. In boardrooms across the globe, executives who thought they were buying ultimate power discover they have purchased their own destruction. And somewhere in America, a middle-aged nurse starts her first shift at a rural clinic, her past erased, her future uncertain, her knowledge buried so deep that even she will eventually forget what she once knew. The war for Protocol 17 Romeo is over. Everyone lost, which means everyone won.
The stories end here, but the journey continues. Many new episodes are waiting for you. And if you enjoy, please take a moment to like, subscribe to our EV Story channel, and turn on the bell. See you in the next story.